Florida and has received state funds for this purpose. The funding was intended to help the thousands of domestic violence survivors and their families to rebuild each year. Instead, the organization under the CEO, Tiffany Carr, was compensated millions of dollars over a 3-year period. And we knew there must be accountability for the coalition's misuse of state dollars, complete lack of transparency, and betrayal of the public trust. And so we work with the Florida legislature to quickly remove the organization from statute. In February 2020, I signed House Bill 1087. The organization's sole source contract was effectively terminated upon my signature. The following month, we moved forward with a lawsuit to recoup money that should have gone to the citizens of Florida for whom it was intended. So today, the Department of Children and Families and the Attorney General settled all pending civil actions against the coalition, the foundation, and its officers and directors for more than $5 million. The settlement requires the foundation to liquidate all remaining assets and pay domestic violence centers $1.1 million to serve survivors of domestic violence. The power that this group was given for almost 20 years and their misrepresentation of appropriation of state and federal funds is inexcusable, should not have happened, and it cannot be allowed to happen in other organizations that may be getting funding from the state of Florida. So once this was uncovered, I instructed the Inspector General, Melinda McGill, to do a deep dive into other nonprofits receiving a large amount of state funds to ensure that salary compensation is in line with federal and state regulations. And we don't want to see this repeated. Now, we don't have full results on that yet, and we have not yet identified something along these lines. Hopefully we won't, but that review is underway. You got to have accountability and transparency. That was obviously lacking with this organization for many, many years. I want to thank the Attorney General for pursuing this and vindicating the rights of Florida taxpayers. I also want to thank the legislature for moving very quickly back in 2020 to eliminate this sole source provision in the statute. And with that, I will turn it over to the Attorney General for some remarks.
Thank you so much, Governor. And we really appreciate those of you that are here today to join us for this important announcement. As you know, this administration and certainly Governor DeSantis, since taking office, has made it clear if someone is trusted by the voters or the state of Florida to do the work of the state, the important work in many instances like this one, protecting victims of domestic violence, they will be held to an extremely high standard, not only in the function of their work, but in terms of their integrity and the integrity of the office in which they are entrusted. And regardless of what your political affiliation, regardless of the circumstances, if you fail in that high expectation, this governor and this administration will hold you accountable and will ensure that you are no longer in that position to violate the public's trust. So today we are here to make the important announcement that the Florida Coalition of Domestic Violence, its foundation, will be dissolved, its assets liquidated, and the recovery of millions of dollars to the state of Florida, millions of dollars which should have originally gone to victims of domestic violence and not officers, directors, and certainly not Tiffany Carr for their own personal gain. This is how the scheme worked. Carr stacked the Florida Coalition of Domestic Violence board with beneficiaries of the organization's funding. And then at the end of the year, when the organization was supposed to return unused money that was not given directly to domestic violence centers to the state, it was then that she would arrange for the modification of her compensation in the form of bonuses, raises, and particularly paid time off. This allowed them to conceal the excessive compensation to Tiffany Carr. Paid time off would then be shown as a liability. It would not be reported immediately as compensation. And so over years, this was allowed to remain concealed because it kept rolling over and accruing. Some of this paid time off was so excessive when it was accrued and rolled over that it amounted to millions of dollars when it was ultimately redeemed. And that is when calls came for a restructuring of this organization, and we leapt into action. And I just want to give you some examples of this egregious paid time off that was arranged and concealed. In 1 year, Tiffany Carr received 360 days of paid time off. Now, I'll just remind everyone that's 365 days in a year, and in 1 year it was 465 days of paid time off. Over a 3-year period after taxes, she received millions, and the compensation was so excessive that finally, when this money was redeemed, just prior to us coming into office, it triggered an excessive executive compensation tax liability under IRS rules, costing a nonprofit $1 million in tax penalties. So I'm going to restate that. A tax-exempt nonprofit that was supposed to help domestic violence victims using state money paid its executives so much they triggered a $1 million tax obligation. That is despicable. As the governor has said, this will not be tolerated in the state of Florida and under this administration. And I'm pleased to announce today that we have reached a settlement to recover millions for the state of Florida. Millions from the foundation, which will be dissolved. Those monies will be sent directly to domestic violence centers, and the Florida Coalition of Domestic Violence and that foundation will be dissolved and its assets liquidated. In addition to the recovery of monies we're announcing today, when those assets are liquidated, DCF, which is the state agency primarily involved, will be the creditor in line to receive any assets and the amount of those assets and recovery from those dissolution. So we're excited today to announce this recovery. This is the resolution of the civil actions in this case. In no way does this resolve any prospective criminal actions. Those decisions will come at a later date. What was important to the governor and I was to ensure that as quick as possible, we could ensure that these organizations that were set up to provide for some of the most vulnerable victims in our state were reorganized, that they were done so in a way that this cannot happen again, that we could stop any misuse of taxpayer funds immediately and ensure that there was no disruption in services to domestic violence victims across the state. We were able to do that. These corrupt organizations will be dissolved. Monies will be recovered to the state. And we look forward to moving forward and making sure that folks that are entrusted with monies and responsibilities in the state of Florida, whether you've been given that trust by voters, whether you've been given that trust by this administration, you will be held accountable if you violate that trust. If you use funds that were meant for Floridians, for victims, you are entrusted with that important responsibility. If you siphon off money corruptly for your own personal gain, you'll be held accountable. And so I thank the governor again for making this clear immediately upon taking office. Not only will he hold folks and is very detailed in making sure people live up to what they say they'll do in office, he's going to make sure that they execute their responsibilities with integrity and trust and accountability. I also want to thank House Speaker Chris Sprowls, the head of the House Integrity Committee, Chairman Leak. They sprang into action. They conducted an investigation that was very thorough and helped us in our efforts. And we will continue to work with the House as needed as we move forward to put in place ways that we can ensure this does not happen again in the state of Florida. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for helping us talk about this important resolution to the civil litigation. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them at this time.
Chairman Moody, you said millions of dollars will be recovered. That's a little vague. Can you give us a range? Are we talking 7 figures, 8 figures?
Certainly. Almost, and this is in the civil actions, we're resolving multiple civil actions, nearly $5 million. And that will come from Tiffany Carr, primarily, and officers and directors, insurance payments, and then from the foundation, those assets will be liquidated and distributed to domestic violence centers across the state.
Governor,
Let me take this one right here.
Governor, in 24 hours, the judge is expected to rule on the mask mandate in Leon County. If you lose, will you accept that decision, or will you continue to fight?
Oh, no, obviously, yeah, we'd appeal. We have our Attorney General here. Maybe she would want to weigh in on the legal component of it. But yeah, no, we think, yeah, so, and obviously, if we win in district court, I'm sure it'll be, or in trial court, I'm sure it'll be appealed on the other side too. And so that's good. I mean, I think, we obviously need to have this stuff crystallized. We think, obviously, I'll let Ashley talk about, the law, but we feel that the legislature really made a big statement with their parental bill of rights, and that's an important piece of legislation. So go ahead.
I'm a parent of a young school-age child, in addition to being the Attorney General. I want to thank this governor who has said we have to protect the parents' ability to choose for their children under different circumstances. Many of these children have faced different health circumstances and parents should be able to make that choice as they're sending their child off to school. And so, I think, and the governor is right, appropriate way to challenge something that you disagree with is to do that in court. We think the law is clear, and I think far too often, especially these days, you have elected officials. Look, all of us are concerned with the health and safety of Floridians, of Americans. We're going to keep doing everything in our powers to make sure that we are protecting our citizens. But that does not give anyone the right to disregard the rule of law, and the governor is correct. If there is an argument with a law, it should be challenged in court. Otherwise, you cannot flagrantly disregard statutes and orders in violation of law. It's pretty clear. It's a tenet of what our country is built on.
Governor, you've been very passionate.
Let me take it right here.
Do you have any idea how many victims could have been affected by these actions of the coalition?
We have 42 domestic violence centers across the state. The Florida Coalition of Domestic Violence was the entity that was to coordinate, ensure they were living up to standards, and then pass through money as needed to those organizations. The problem here is Tiffany Carr stacked that board that determined how that money was distributed with many people that were allegiant to her, that participated in this scheme to cover up this excessive compensation. And so there are certain things that went on to allow for this to happen that we have accounted for. We will make sure never happens again. But our action was so important, and why we brought it so quickly after the House investigation uncovered so much of this, was we needed to make sure there was no disruption of service to the centers, and that these centers could get that money that was intended to them to help aid victims, and that will be done through the settlement.
Governor, you've been very passionate about your executive order on the mask mandate. Yesterday, you mentioned additional consequences for districts that aren't obeying this, that are forcing kids to wear masks here in Orange County. It's starting next week. What are those additional consequences?
Well, I think you'll hear an announcement from the Board of Education about the first two districts. That'll happen very soon. And then I know there's parents who've had their rights taken away, who are going to pursue legal action. I think you will see that in some areas. And look, that when you do a Bill of Rights type of piece of legislation, obviously there may be certain enforcement mechanisms that like the state would do, and maybe in this case with penalties. The penalties will be applied to the politicians who violated the law. There'll be no penalties applied to school children or teachers or any of that. In fact, if teachers just follow state law, they'll be protected for doing that. So that'll be the penalties will be focused on the politicians. But when you have a Bill of Rights, if your individual right as a parent is violated, then you have the ability then to go in and seek vindication. They're obviously doing the opposite there in Tallahassee. They're trying to basically nullify the parent's Bill of Rights, but you can also do it from the other end. And I would just note, it was a little bit, sometime in August of last year. Remember, we were being sued because we had the schools open and we said parents need to have the ability to send their kid to school. We got sued. We did lose in the trial court, and then we won on appeal resoundingly, and kids were able to go and get an education. And so that was something that was very, very important. But I do think that this will be resolved one way or another. I think the appeal will happen relatively quickly, and then you're going to have individual parents, because think about it. This, in terms of health, there's parents whose kids have not done well wearing the mask all day. Obviously, kids with special needs have not done well, kids with autism, and then just kids who don't learn as well when they're not able, particularly the little kids, when they're not able to see some of the facial cues and being able to do some of that. And so it has taken a toll on kids throughout Florida. Now, not every parent maybe thinks that, but many do. And so, they, I think, want to be able to send their kid in the best environment possible, understanding that there are some real drawbacks depending on the student situation. So I do think you're going to see that. And I also think from an evidence-based perspective, in that Leon County, I mean, they were not able to produce any control studies to show that there was a meaningful difference. In fact, the CDC, when they did their big Georgia study, they buried the conclusion, but they were looking to see like what mitigation worked, and they basically acknowledged that there wasn't a statistical significant difference between forced mask and optional mask school districts in Georgia last year. I think the same is true, in Florida in terms of how that ended up working out. But just think about a kid who's already recovered from COVID. I mean, people have gotten it. Obviously, Delta is much further, it travels much quicker. So you have someone recovered, now they're in there, to have them wear a mask, if that's not something the parent wants, from a scientific basis, I think you'd be hard pressed to say that's going to have any effect, even if you think the cloth masks are doing a lot of to block the viral. This is somebody that there was a study just out of Israel showing again just how potent the immunity conferred from infection is. I mean, it does provide you protection. I know there's some that don't like to acknowledge that, but that clearly is a scientific fact at this point. So I think that there's a lot of basis for parents to look and say, hey, my kid's got special needs. I have rights under the statute. I'm going to go in. Or my kid has immunity from a prior infection documented by all these different studies. What possible basis does it serve to take my right away and to make them do it? So I think you're going to see a lot of that flushed out.
So what are the additional consequences for our elected leaders?
In Tallahassee, a judge tomorrow also expected to rule about the unemployment, but the crisis a lot of people still have, they can't get through the DEO, claims are still stalled. I'm wondering if you can just give some insight on where the fixes are and where Dr. Scott is.
So when you're looking at some of the claims, so most of the claims go through very quickly, fortunately. There's been a lot that's been done. Now, fortunately, we don't have nearly as many claims as we did a year and a half ago. But there are some claims where the employer will contest, where there's a need for verification. They go through that. It takes a little longer. They are working to try to get to deal with that. But here's the issue. There's been attempts of fraud on our unemployment system, $10-20 billion worth of attempts. We've stopped, Dane Eagle will give you the exact number, we've stopped at least 10, I think up to $20 billion in fraudulent claims. We had over $1 billion in just 1 month, I remember, in January. And so that's what's happening. The system has to protect against that. And so if there's things that are flagged, they've got to go down and do it. So they are working hard to do it, but just they are being, it's not just Florida, inundated with fraudulent claims. This has become a major cottage industry. I think we have done, the amount of fraud that's been paid out in Florida is much less than many other states, because I think we've taken it our responsibility to try to protect the taxpayers on this and not do it. So you're going to end up with, I think, hundreds of billions of dollars throughout the country in just fraudulent unemployment claims will have ended up being paid out. And so we'll see the court. I can tell you this, in terms of unemployment there are jobs available in Florida. Obviously, we had an upheaval in the economy nationwide in March of 2020, in April. I mean, it was tough times, and we worked to get this system up and running. It was a struggle there for some time, put a lot of resources in to be able to handle that. But now we're in a situation, we have 400 to 500,000 job openings in the state of Florida. If you go around, almost everyone wants to hire in some way or some form. And so, the need to have elongated unemployment and all that is not where it was back then, because we have so many opportunities. And I think you're seeing that. I mean, some of these jobs, you're getting a signing bonus. You may be working at a fast food place or some of this other stuff because the need is so intense. There's some restaurants that are doing very well, but they have to close 1 or 2 days a week because they don't have enough folks to be able to work. So we're in a much different position. We obviously had almost 70,000 private sector jobs in July, and then we'll get the August numbers. But then September, because the extended window will end, I think you'll see even more folks. So I'm just confident there's people that want to hire you. If there weren't any place to go, if this were March of 2020, April 2020, look, it'd be a different ballgame. But we fortunately have a lot of opportunities now in Florida, and we want people to be able to seize those, to take advantage of those opportunities. And obviously, it's just good for our business. It's good for our economic base that these folks are able to kind of keep going and having the adequate staffing that they need. Okay.
What are those additional consequences? What
As you can see, the jackals in the mainstream media are getting frustrated because we're doing governance the right way in Florida. Unlike in DC, where they just let anybody do anything and hold no one accountable. We have billions in excess revenue. Tall Oaks, who is liable for all the sick kids? Oh, poor little liberals, whining about government not intervening in their lives. You gotta love that. You gotta love how it's always the government to go run to if someone gets sick. See, this is what happens in my lives when I do stuff like this, is the liberals will sneak in here and they'll try to take over the conversation or change the subject, like to something stupid like a pipeline or rainwater, instead of focusing on the task at hand. We are identifying corruption, people that are taking advantage of our taxpayers, and we are holding them accountable. And they're going to likely go to jail for what they've done. This was a domestic violence group that had embezzled money. And it was caught. In fact, they were so greedy that they had taken money, siphoned it off, put it into something called paid time off, and it had accrued in an account. And the account got so big when they went to pull the money out to steal it, the IRS triggered an audit. That's how dumb these people were. But whether it's Governor DeSantis or Ashley Moody, our Attorney General, we have an entire team of conservatives ready to answer the media. And there's this thing about, somebody mentioned a petition to impeach or recall DeSantis, something. 70,000 people out of 22 million in Florida. I'll leave it up to you to go get your calculator out and figure out what percentage 70,000 is out of 22 million. Just to give you an example, I believe, just ballpark here, 1 million out of 22 million is about 5%. So figure out how much less 70,000 is. That's how popular he is. What do I think about the white-tailed deer? I did a whole video on it, KL. In fact, I believe I was the first one to do a video on it. Oh, somebody mentioned Nikki Fried. Thank you for bringing that up. Because I brought up this picture because I wanted to talk about this and I almost forgot. So it was in financial disclosures that they were required to do that we identified this fraud. Well, guess what? Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried is now 2 months late, over 2 months actually, filing her required financial disclosure statements just to hold her position as agricultural commissioner. She can't run for governor until she does this, and she's 2 months late now. I wonder what she's hiding. Miss Nikki Fried, why haven't you filed? You were supposed to. Your deadline was 2 months ago. 2 months ago, Miss Fried. What are you hiding? Why haven't we seen your... Everybody else has. CFO Jimmy Patronis has. Ashley Moody has. Governor DeSantis has. I wonder what could Nikki Fried be hiding? You see, she had this fiancé at one time. Not sure if they're married or not, if they're still together or whatever. Owner of a big medical marijuana organization outfit trying to push that on the people of Florida against our will. So, something to keep your eye on. This is the woman they were talking about in the video. Carr, well, I believe is her last name, that embezzled all the funds. I love this picture because take a look at who's in the background there. Does anybody notice the individual standing in the background? Yeah. Exactly right. Exactly right. One of the rhino of all rhinos. Check out that rock, too. You got to wonder where that money went. I think we know. So, anyway, thank you very much for the $4.99. I appreciate it. Global Witness, thank you for that. So, I just wanted to cover this morning because it's such a great contrast. It is really such a great contrast to see how actual governance is done when you have good and decent and moral Christian people who are educated and motivated to hold people accountable, hold their feet to the fire. And I'm going to ask this again. Why aren't we seeing other governors of conservative states doing this? Why? There's cameras everywhere. You don't need a press gaggle of reporters to get out in front of a camera and record an event like this in Tennessee, in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Missouri, in Texas. You don't need that. It's, you can announce it and make it be an event like this. But how many of these have we done now? Just in this year? 10, 12, 14? Talking about a range of subjects, whether it's holding big tech accountable, whether it's holding China accountable, whether it's fighting for the cruise lines. Thank you very much, and we know 828. All of the things that we have done, the Parents' Bill of Rights, where we have gotten out in front and led as an example to what can be done by governors in your states. You can take your lives back. You don't continually need to be ashamed of Washington, D.C. So what if Biden's a coward? Yeah, I agree he's a coward. Make your state a state of not cowards. You'll be amazed how much better your life is. And all you need is someone with the guts to stand up and just do it. And not be afraid of the media. Not be afraid of, oh, but what if I offend this person? Oh, but what if I offend this other person? You can't do that. Yeah, you can do it. I know there are good people in Tennessee. I know there are good people in Georgia, in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Louisiana, and all across the South. Put people in positions of power that are willing to do this. Now, I know this particular news conference had to do with something internal to Florida. Welcome, Robert DeMoss. It can be done. It can be done. It can be done at the state level. We can return our country to being governed the way it was supposed to be governed at the state level. I know a lot of people think that's disunity or, that's not what made us strong. This whole idea of America, of just being one country and having governors just to be assistant presidents, that was never, never, never supposed to be the way it was done. Governors govern. Presidents preside. It's literally in the name. President. The actual governance is done on the ground. And you see, I see DeSantis for presider. Who cares who the presider is? I would rather govern than preside. I would rather govern than preside. I would rather good people govern than just preside. And besides, 50 states that flip-flops every 4 years with different values. Who would want a tyrant? I guarantee DeSantis doesn't have any desire to go to Washington, D.C. He is a Floridian for Floridians. And I'm sure some are probably going to have a problem with him because they're going to say, oh, please, DeSantis, run or be vice president or do something like that. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If other states want to allow themselves to go to hell because they fear Biden or they fear, trying to stand up because somebody might punch back, that's how you know you're dealing with a true coward. You see, bullies like to pick on people who don't punch back. Bullies like to pick on people that don't punch back. First time you punch a bully back, he's going to go find somebody else to bully who won't hit back. What if we all started punching back? Now, Florida can punch a lot harder because we got money. And we have international tourism. You see, we don't need DC's money. We don't need federal funds. We have people from all over the world screaming to come into our state and spend their money and fill our tax coffers. And DC knows that. And DC can't stop that. Florida Maquis, why do you show girls in bikinis all the time? Because that's what brings people from all over the world to Florida, our beaches, our vacations, our entertainment, our service industry. And those girls in bikinis, they do more to drive freedom and liberty and justice in our state than anything else because we got the money and the power to enforce it. And that's just the truth. I'm not going to talk about anything going on in the MSM. The MSM can yammer on about Biden's failures all day long. We're not going to talk about it here. At least not in this one. Not in this live. And I guess I'll leave it with this. If you're of the opinion that every time something bad happens, the solution to it is government, you aren't going to like Florida. If you're of the opinion that if kids get sick, or if this comes down the road, or if that comes down the road, oh, government, what are you going to do to protect me? You're not going to like Florida. We give you the ability and empower you to protect yourself and make your own decisions. But we're not going to run in every moment in time in the world that something bad happens to you. Figure it out for yourself. Now, in this particular case, people were given latitude with state funds, and they abused it, and they're going to go to prison for it. Exactly right, Marianne Nelson. Neighbors helping neighbors. We help each other out. See, unlike California culture that says every time somebody gets the sniffles, it's government's job to fix that. our governor wrote a book. Hold on. Let's see if I can reach it here. Hold on. And I just got my hardcover copy called Dreams from Our Founding Fathers, First Principles in the Age of Obama. It's by Ron DeSantis. He wrote a book, and this was before he was governor. It's from High Pitched Hum Publishing. Who remembers when then President Obama made the statement about the Bill of Rights being a list of negative liberties, meaning a list of things that government can't do to you, but it doesn't say anywhere what government has to do on your behalf. You see, it goes to their level of thinking that government should be given power to make people's lives better. It's your job to make your life better. It's government's job to build basically fences, so to speak, but not govern what goes on inside those fences. And this book from our governor, First Principles in the Age of Obama, Dreams from Our Founding Fathers, talks about why our founding fathers realized that whether it's a king 3,000 miles away or tyrants 1 mile away, when you start handing over power to government to make your life better, directly, better is subjective, not objective. Better is subjective, not objective. What makes life better for one makes it worse for the other. For example, somebody's afraid, oh no, I could go to school or I could go to a place of work or a place of business and somebody there might have a cold and I might catch it. Therefore, government, you need to mask everyone under force of law to keep me from getting sick. See what happened there? You had one person who feels like to make their life better, the government should force everybody else to have their life be worse. Thank you, Ghost Rider. Appreciate it. Because one person wants to live in fear, they want to run to government and have everybody's life be worse. To put a mandate, a mask mandate on the rest of us because another group of people is afraid. Because another group of people is, why are they afraid? Because the media. The mainstream media largely overblows things and makes them into these, mountains out of molehills. And makes everybody afraid for ratings. Thanks for being here, Dub. And then tries to employ government. It can't be done that way. It only ends in tyranny. It only ends in tyranny. This is why states' rights, state government is the only answer. This is the bulwark that was built in by our founding fathers. What would be the purpose of having a U.S. Supreme Court and also having 50 state Supreme Courts and then also federal appeals courts? What's the point in having a president and 50 governors? What's the point in having a U.S. Senate, but also 50 state senates, a U.S. House of Representatives, but also 50 state houses of representatives? What's the point in that? Redundancy in local government. That what the nation may think about a thing may not serve a local state. People say, Florida Maquis, what's your opinion on the vaccination? Florida Maquis, I watch your videos, and sometimes it seems like you're for the vaccination, but yet sometimes it also feels like you're against the vaccination. What do you think? The only thing that I think has to do with whether I'm going to get it or not. And that's between me, my God, and my doctor. I have zero opinion about what anyone else should or should not do with the vaccination. Why? It's not my business. Thank you, Painful 13. It's not my business. And it is also not your business what someone else should or should not do with the vaccine. If you don't want to get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated. If you want to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. It's only up to you. What I'm for is people keeping their nose at other people's business. That's what I'm for. There's a reason that they passed HIPAA, the patient privacy laws. So you having opinion, anyone having opinion about what, quote unquote, people should do. This is the important part here. What people should do. If you have an opinion about what people should do, you're wrong. The only opinion you should have is about what you're going to do. Well, thank you, Mick and Marley. I very much appreciate that. It's like, should people be allowed to own dogs or cats? Why is that a group opinion? Why is that a group opinion? And I just did Smith, B Smith, fake account B Smith. No picture, giant orange B, fake account. Just did. It's nobody's business. Nobody should even know whether you are or not vaccinated. Nobody should even know. Hell, I could go put a Band-Aid on my arm, a fake Band-Aid on my arm, and pretend I'm vaccinated all day. See right there, Don Lilly just did it. They. Who's they? Who's they? Do you think the state of Florida? My mayor here in Volusia County? Or pardon me, Flagler County? Who's they? There's no they. They doesn't exist. The idea of should they this or should they that or should people this or should people that, that's the trap. That is the trap. Government, you see Don Lillard, government who? Who? How many levels? Which one? Which person? If it's your business, that's that business's choice. You see, that's the point. If you're going to say they, you don't get to just, pronoun away your duty to think when you formulate a question. Who specifically? I know for a fact Governor DeSantis is not going to force anyone to be vaccinated. Not going to force anyone to be vaccinated. Now, can't speak for California. Can't speak for Washington or Oregon. Not my problem. Not my monkeys. Only one state has outlawed employer mandates. Montana. Well, the only thing I'm going to say about Montana is Montana's going to have to be very careful what they do. The power they give government. I say let the business make the decision and then live with the consequences. Not yet. If you exactly see air quotes they. See, nobody wants to talk about they. And that's actually a great way to put that, naughty head beats. In quotes. Because there is no they. There is no people. See, that's how liberals talk. That's how liberals talk. In giant, grandiose, sweeping terms about what people should or shouldn't do, or what, or should this other thing be allowed or not be allowed. Allowed by who? Where? Under what circumstance? See, the argument, what they're trying to do is make us all one giant melting pot of people that all have the same values and have one leader. It's communism. It's communism. And when you even engage in that conversation, you are automatically assuming you want just a different kind of communism. When you engage in a conversation about what people should or what they should or should not do, all you're engaging in is a conversation about what type of communism you already want. You have to change the entire premise. If you want to live that way, you go live that way. I'm going to go over here and live this other way. And if we have to put up a fence, we'll put up a fence. One of the reasons communism forbids prayer is because it allows a personal relationship. It allows a personal, independent relationship that God may have one path for this person, or one path, another path, entire path for this other person, or another person. Hey, I got a question for you guys, and I want you to think about this for just a minute. Everybody's all excited about this whole idea of they want to show that the vaccine makes your skin magnetic. How many people have seen this? How many people have seen this where people allegedly, with no proof, have alleged that they've gone and gotten vaccinated, and then all of a sudden they show metal sticking to their skin? How many of you seen that? You've seen it in videos, right? Okay, now here's the question you need to really ask yourself. What if nobody had ever taken the vaccination? How would anyone know? You see, all these side effects and all these bad things, all these strange things, if you didn't have video of it, how would you know? How would you know? You wouldn't. See, somebody had to go and take the vaccination for people to know what the side effects were, because nobody alleged prior to the vaccine that the vaccine was going to make you magnetic. Think about that clearly for just a minute. All of the side effects that they're saying this, that, and the other about are all as the result of someone having stepped up and gotten vaccinated. Now, once again, I have no opinion about what you should do. I only have an opinion about what I should do, and I don't want to know what your decision is, and I'm not giving you mine. We're allowed to have that level of privacy in our lives. We're allowed to have that level of discretion in our lives. That's always been the case. You see, that's something a lot of people don't want to ask themselves. Man, I wouldn't be able to push all my conspiracy theories without these people having done something I'm telling them they shouldn't have done anyway. Think about that for just a minute. Because somebody didn't take your advice because you wanted to advise people to not get vaccinated. Somebody vaccinated. Somebody went against your advice, and now you have evidence to push your conspiracy theory. And this is what happens when I say something people can't answer. Everybody tries to change the subject about the French. Let's see, what else are people talking about here? Some other doctor did this, that, or the other. That's how you know you're dealing with liberals. That's how you know you're dealing with liberals in your audience, is that whenever you bring up a point they can't directly address, all of a sudden they will try to go to your comment section and they will change the subject to some other conspiracy theory. Move the goalposts. Or like, here's a comment that hasn't appeared yet. And I'm going to hide it because it says, go look into the blah, blah, blah in the blah, blah, blah about the blah, blah, blah that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And I'm just going to hide that. And I'm going to hide the user on the channel. See, like Blue Mariner 77 moves the goalpost. Graphene oxide, blah, 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 whatever. So, anyway, this is the tactic, this is the technique the mainstream media and liberals use. Move the goalposts. Move the goalposts. Keep moving the goalposts. When you can't answer the questions, move the goalposts. And get people talking about something else. There's a story, and I'll leave with this, on CNN about this guy who was a personal trainer, ripped to shreds. And early in 2020, he got a mild case of COVID and got over it and had a test done, and he had antibodies. Okay, so he thought he was fine. He decided, you know what? I got sick. It was a mild cold. Got over it, and now I have antibodies. The guy's a personal trainer, right? Eats right, exercises, healthy, this whole bit. So he decided, I'm going to wait on the vaccine. And I'll see if I can find the link to this story. So then, sometime later, he gets COVID again. But wait, he has antibodies. Well, this time he gets this new COVID, and it almost kills him. And he loses like 60, 70 pounds, and he's in the hospital. And his wife or girlfriend or whoever has to quit her job and all this kind of stuff. And you see, there we go again. You see this thing about trying to change the subject? Problem, overpopulation. Goodbye, that comment. So anyway, the point is this. So this guy goes on CNN and says, oh, get vaccinated because I had antibodies. And I got horribly sick and almost died and blah, 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 blah. But wait a minute. What's the whole point of the vaccine? What's the whole point of the vaccine? It's supposed to make your body build antibodies. But if you already have them, the antibodies, like this guy did, confirmably had a test, and you can still get it, what would then be the point of the vaccine? He already had antibodies, facts first, because he'd had an infection. And then he didn't get vaccinated. And then it came around again, but this time it almost killed him. Now, here's the level 2. Are you ready for the level 2 on this? The guy was a personal trainer. Now, he was getting into his late 40s. And he had already had one bout with COVID. A lot of these guys you see online that are personal trainers with the ripped abs and the cut bodies and the muscles and all that, they use different enhancing substances, anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids suppress your immune system, meaning that even when you get sick, your body doesn't respond. It's one of the side effects. It allows your body to rebuild muscle faster and stronger. You see, they don't say this in the article, but clearly, this guy, the reason the second bout he had with COVID was way worse is because he was trying to recover from the first bout, and he was probably taking some anabolic steroids to beef back up so that he could get back in business again. And that's why the second time he got it, he got horribly, horribly ill. Thank you, Steve. Sneaky, same with opioids. There are so many things out there that people are keeping hidden. They're little private wars that they're having, whether it be with alcohol, whether it be with opioids, whether it be with other prescription meds, all sorts of things that suppress your immune system. But you see, it doesn't fit the narrative. How can a disease, the same disease, make one person just have basically the sniffles for a week and damn near kill someone else? No one ever heard of a sniffles level case of Ebola or a sniffles level case of mumps or measles. When people got mumps or measles, pretty much everybody had the exact same experience with it, and once they had the antibodies, never got it again. How can this be? If it's just the disease, how can it affect people so wildly differently? Because people have wildly different levels of immune response. It's not an engineered virus, Wendy. It's just that people have a wildly different level of immune response to the same thing. If you have a strong immune system, you're going to kick it. If you don't, you're going to get very, very sick. That's just the reality. And it's not vitamin D is good, but it's not just vitamin D. Healthy diet and exercise is good, but it's not just healthy diet and exercise. Social distancing is good, but that alone, it's about taking care of yourself and using good common sense and being able to make your own decision for yourself. And this also explains why some people who have gotten the vaccine have gotten very ill. And some people who have gotten the vaccine have not gotten very ill. Why? What's the variable? The variable isn't the vaccine. The variable isn't COVID. The variable is the person. The variable is the person themselves and their immune system. That's the variable. Some people, like for example, every night on Twitch, I stream for about 2.5 hours, and I wear a mask the entire time. I don't feel lightheaded or like I'm not getting oxygen. There's been nights I've gone for 4.5 hours wearing a mask. No problem. That's me. The guy next door, guy 2 houses down, might not be able to do that. So anyone out there alleging that they are guaranteeing that if you get COVID, X is going to happen, or if you get COVID vaccine, X is going to happen, they're lying. Well, my neighbor got the vaccine and blah, blah, blah happened. Okay, well, that was your neighbor. That probably might not happen to the guy 3 houses down or 7 houses down or 20 houses down. Same thing with COVID, same thing with the vax, same thing with a lot of things. Right, exactly. Everybody has their own unique reaction to not just COVID, pneumonia, and measles. Some people beat it in 2 weeks. Some people beat it in 1 week. Engineered virus and individual immune systems is a variable. Okay, well, then why say it's an engineered virus? It's just a virus. The engineered part makes no difference. It makes no difference. Whether the virus is engineered or not engineered or natural or whatever, it makes no difference. How you deal with it is up to you. In the sense that how you take care of yourself. And there's a lot of people that are embarrassed. There's a lot of people that are embarrassed to say, yeah, I've been popping Percocets every day for the last 20 years. Behind everyone's back. Nobody knows. I'm a functioning addict. Same thing with alcoholism. Worst bioweapon ever, quitting time. Worst bioweapon ever. You know why it's the worst bioweapon ever? Because it takes away largely the dregs of society and the dead weight and leaves the strong behind. What kind of a bioweapon leaves the strong behind? It makes literally no sense. I mean, literally, if you want to make your enemy stronger, get rid of his dead weight. Get rid of the weak. Get rid of the addicted. Get rid of 80% of the mortality. 80% of the mortality with this virus is with the obese and people on government assistance and elderly. That literally makes up all of it. That's what holds a society back. Well, if the deplorables are a bunch of fat asses sitting on their ass eating chicken wings, praying for a return of Trump, then yeah. Mickey. Lockdown isn't weakening, Frank. If you allow your immune system to be weakened because of lockdown, that's your choice. Your immune system has a lot more to do with your diet and level of exercise, level of hydration, level of sleep. You build that, what you're talking about, kids build that. And I guess maybe you just have to come to Florida to understand that. We have a lot of people walking around healthy as a horse almost 2 years later. See, here we go, Judy Moore. I know 2 people who recently blah, 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 blah. Well, that means everybody's going to die, right, Judy? You see, that's Judy just is doing a liberal scare tactic right there. Judy Moore, she's doing a liberal scare tactic. I have this anecdotal story, so everybody should be afraid and apply it to their life. And here's Blue Sky trying to change the subject again. SARS-CoV-2 has never been isolated. Yep, everybody's making it up, SARS. Blue Sky, everybody's making it up. Everybody's making it up. It's all just make-believe. It doesn't really exist. And what you just said, Lee, is just, ridiculous to the point it's almost you can't even deal with it. Frank Ark, Sneaky Beaver. It is dangerous to live. You risk. I don't even know what that means. But life is dangerous. Life is dangerous. Life has risk. Oh, I'm not angry. I'm just trying to point out flaw in people's arguments when they try to scare people. When they try to scare people, when they try to take an anecdotal story about something bad that happened to them and then try to make everyone else afraid because it could happen to them. People die. Especially when they don't have any facts to back up their statements. And Chalfant, mRNA is going to go after your own DNA. Okay, yeah, because this is what I love, mRNA vaccines. You see, they've never been done before, but all of a sudden people are experts saying what's going to happen when it's a negative thing. You see, when it's a negative thing, all these people who say that there haven't been studies done are experts. And here's Richie again. It's a bioweapon. What garbage. You see, this is why nobody takes Trump supporters and conservatives seriously. Because of people like this. This is why, they say, oh, give the little Trumpy a pat on the head and give him a nickel and have them go run along their way. Because they tolerate ignorance and idiocy in their group this way. So, anyway, I guess I will leave it there. We're at over an hour for what was a 20-minute press conference, but basically the announcement was this. For those of you who've been waiting, the announcement was that Florida has identified vast amounts of corruption, and we are recouping that money, and we are going to hold people accountable, and we are going to govern the way things are supposed to be governed. Good governance can happen. Good governance can happen when good people are put in charge. And that's what we have. All of you who contributed, thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. And Lord willing, we will see you guys tonight on Twitch. And keep your eyes open. Might have a video up in a little bit.